Hello everybody, thought I'd do a quick update. So I finally ended up getting my rims and tires. Still waiting for the back tires though. They should be here in about a week and a half or so. I finished talking to the vendor. Well, I took everything apart, and as you can see, everything's taken apart here. I had the lower control arms removed. I replaced the bushings because they were all cracked. Last thing you want to do is put new tires on a suspension that's kind of worn out. So I got new bushings in the top and bottom control arms. The top ones have already been done a little while ago. The lower control arm's back on. Another thing I did when I had the control arms off, I removed the Holley engine mounts because they're polyurethane and I really don't dig the vibration. Some people don't mind it, but for a pro touring car, I rather have it nice and smooth. So I ended up getting factory engine mounts, and I had to modify them a bit because the spacing is different for the holes that line up with the Holley brackets that go onto the LS swap engine mounts, the brackets that actually bolt onto the block. So that being said, here's the rims. I'm going to show you guys. Oh, well, I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you one of the rims anyways. These are the Riddler. I was going to get the Rambler, but the Riddler and the Rambler are pretty well the same. These are 17-inch rims, 8 inches wide. Another thing I did is I actually chopped my leaf springs because the thing's going to sit way too high with these tires and rims combination. Here's one of the tires. This is a Toyo R888R race compound tire, very nice. It's a much lower profile than the factory tires. The factory tires are 225 in the front and 235 in the back, 70 R15s. These are 40 Z17s. So I had to chop the spring, and with GM springs, this is something you guys should really keep in mind if you ever do this, because a lot of people say it's not a good idea to cut your springs, but if you want the same kind of ride, just cut your springs. So basically, for every inch of spring height that you cut off, you're going to lower the vehicle 2 inches. So I cut it off exactly an inch, so I'm going to lower the vehicle 2 inches. And it might even still look like it's sitting high because these tires are such a low profile. And here are the pretty well chopped off a whole ring off the spring there. There's the other side. I use a disc cutter. Don't use torches. You don't want to heat up the springs because it's gonna ruin the springticity of the springs, and they're not gonna work properly. And they might even snap on you. So that's what I did. So basically, if you're gonna cut your springs for spring height, you got it for GM. This is only for GM vehicles. I don't know about Ford and Chrysler, but GM coil springs, if you measure it from the bottom all the way up to the top, to the very top edge here, and you decide you want to cut your spring, just keep in mind, for every inch you cut off, so if you measure this, let's say it was 15 inches, and you cut it so it's now 14 inches, you're going to lower the vehicle 2 inches. If you cut off half an inch, so let's say I decided I wanted to only go down 1 inch, instead of cutting off a whole loop, which I did, which actually ended up being 1 inch, it would have been a half inch, it would have been a half a loop, and you would have ended up with a 1 inch drop. So that being said, so my other situation is going to be the rear leaf springs on the back. I'm going to have to put lowering blocks. So basically your axle sits on top of your leaf spring. So basically if you put a spacer between the leaf spring and the axle, you're basically closing the rear end axle higher up into the body, and you're going to eliminate space between the tire and the top of the fender. That I haven't gotten around to yet. In the middle of this disaster over here right now. I got to put all back together. And I won't be putting the tires and rims on until I actually get the back tires. They sent me the front tires, and they told me that the back tires are out of stock. Here's the Toyota tires. They look pretty sick. They said they were out of stock, and when I actually ordered them from eBay because they're the only guys that actually had tires. Everybody else was like, well, if you could get them, and we'll put them on for you. Every tire shop I've been to. So there's the tire size right there. These are the fronts, 235s. I really wanted to get 225s for the front, but 235s are good. This thing's going to stick and handle like a go-kart. Now I forgot what I was going to say. Anyways, here's the Holley mount, the polyurethane mount. They actually come apart. There's the polyurethane part in the middle. It's too bad that Holley does not make this piece out of rubber, so you could use their original mounts with the rubber piece. I looked on the website, and I just couldn't find anything, unfortunately, so I ended up buying the stock GM big block, small block Chevy mounts, which are clamshells. They look a little smaller than this. They're a little lower. And since I had the control arms off, you could get at the bolts underneath, which is, you know, if anybody's done clamshell mounts and removed them, they know what kind of a pain they are, because you can't get at the bolts inside the frame. It's very difficult. But if you have the control arms off, they're right there in your face in one of the control arm bolt seats in between the frame there, so it's really easy to get at. So that's where I am right now. It's time to reassemble. I'm just taking a break, cooking dinner in the oven, and having a drink and relaxing. I cleaned my leak coil springs all up, and I painted them. They look really nice. They look like brand new now. They were kind of rusty, but they weren't that bad. There's no pit holes or anything in them. A lot of grease and stuff on them, probably from the shocks that were on it before that were leaking. And one other thing I want to do is I got a polyurethane mount on the transmission, which I'm going to replace with this. And it just so happens that Summit Racing Equipment has the proper mount for a 704, 4L60, 70, 75. That's the exact same one as the Holley Blackheart cross member for the transmission mount. So this is perfect. I'm going to be using the two holes on the two ends, and Holley gives you a little spacer, so it's a little bit of an adapter to raise it up a bit. The reason why I'm going to change the transmission mount too is you got to realize if you put rubber mounts on your engine and you got a stiff polyurethane mount on the end of the transmission, there's a pretty good chance you're going to snap the tail housing on your transmission, because the torque's going to try to twist, because the engine's going to have more play in it, and it's going to try to twist in the back, and it'll probably end up breaking off your tail housing. So if you go rubber from the front and the back. If you're going to go polyurethane in the front and the back. You can't do half and half. You got to do both. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching my video. It was a short one, but that's where I stand. Hopefully I'll have this thing all back together today, and I can take it for a spin and see how she goes. It's going to look kind of silly because I dropped the front end 2 inches and the back end's still the same. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you guys like, subscribe. I'd appreciate it. Ring the bell if you like, and I'll talk to you soon with my next video. Thanks for watching.